So a customer brought a knife to me. He wants to make a sheath for. The knife has a sheath that really doesn't fit. Matter of fact, you can even see on the corner of it where somebody had like cut part of it away so that the knife's guard would fit into it. It's always a lot easier to make the sheath fit just perfect if you have the knife in hand and you can trace it exactly. But you can actually make the pattern just from a tracing if the customer won't let you keep their knife. But we're going to start off here with making a paper pattern and try and make as many of our mistakes on paper as possible before we get to the leather, which costs a little bit more than, regular copy paper does. I'll start by drawing around the tracing about a ½ inch away from it to make that seam allowance for where I'm going to be doing my stitching. And almost all of this video has been sped up to about 4 times the normal speed. It took me about 2 hours to make a knife sheath like this. This is what I'd refer to as a sandwich style knife sheath, or a layered style, where I actually have a front piece and a back piece and a spacer that goes all the way around and frames the blade. Because this guard on this knife goes out the back of the blade and the front, you can't really do just a fold over style sheath as easily. And don't forget to add a piece on there for our retention strap. And of course the piece that goes up for the belt loop. I actually forget those all the time and have to go back and add them on again. Tape another piece of paper on. Alright, that's our basic pattern piece. We're going to use that to cut a piece out of the leather, which I must have lost the footage for where I marked that. But I'm just rough cutting it right now. I'm marking and rough cutting the piece that's going to become the front panel. I'm just using the same pattern for that. I'll just use the scratch awl to make some points to make a line across the top where I'm going to cut the top of the sheath off. Now to make the part that actually frames the blade as the spacer piece, I'm just actually cutting up my pattern that I just made. To give myself something to mark it with. Since these are one-off sheets that I only ever make one at a time, and I'll never probably see another knife that fits the exact same in the exact same sheets again, I don't really keep the patterns anyway, so just cutting them up works. Right, and there's our pieces. Time to start doing some of the edge beveling. We'll mark our stitching lines. For those not familiar with the tool, the stitching groover that I was just using there is a great way to put stitching lines in, because then your thread actually sets down into the leather because it's in a groove that's been cut away rather than just on a line and sticking out of the top of the leather. It makes your items a lot more durable because you have to wear away leather before you start wearing away stitching. Stitching is always the first thing to go. Now we're wetting it down and marking it up, and we're going to do it with tool it up with a geometric pattern. It's called a tri-weave stamp, kind of a basket weave with 3 sides. In this case, that pattern is something that I've already used on a belt and holster for the same customer. We wanted the same matching pattern. And a border tool stamped around the edge. Now I'm going to use a real thin, probably about 2 to 3 ounce leather to line the back of our main piece of the sheath. Just going to rough cut it for now. After I've got it all colored up and finished and glued together, then I'll cut that to match. After it's all dyed up and finished, I'm going to set a snap on the piece that becomes the front, well, 1/2 of a snap. Because it's going to be really hard to get to this later after I've got it all stitched together. So we want to make sure that we have the bottom piece of the snap there. And then I'm going to glue together the liner and the back piece. And as usual, I just use a contact cement for that, so it sticks together basically right away. I'm using the hole punches any place that I've got a sharp inside corner, so that I don't have to get in real close with the knife. I can just cut out from the holes that I punch. And then I don't wind up with cut marks on my leather that could be weak points where it could tear. There's going to be a lot of times that I bevel edges again in this project. This was beveling the edges on the liner piece. Now I just glue it all back together. Glue the front piece to the spacer frame and the frame to the back. On some sheaths you'll want to actually do the belt loop and sew it on and sew it together before you glue those pieces together. But on this one it shouldn't be an issue, so I didn't bother. Now my machine decides to do some tension issue oddities, so I have to mess around with it a little bit. Now here's where I sew the liner to the belt loop piece. Except sometimes this is a lot easier to do before you get the frame and the front piece on these. I'm really just stitching around that edge so that it doesn't come unraveled as it ages and the glue decides to give up. Then I'll just fold down the loop and throw a few stitches in a arc. And then I take it to a 1x30 grinder, a standard that I have. Just a cheap one. You can get them from Amazon, you can get them from Harbor Freight, places like that. They don't cost much, and they're great for getting the edges ground to match each other. There's better tools for the job, but that one was only like $30 or $40, so it was convenient. Now I'm using the snap to actually mark where the other part of the snap is going to go on the leather. Punching the hole and trimming off the ends of the retention strap. And I'll set the snap in that. Again, beveling edges, because when I ground them to match, sometimes you get some pieces that are flattened back off when you've ground away your beveled edge. So we're just going to dye the edges and then use gum tragacanth, which is gum burnisher, on those edges, so that we can then take the burnishing tool and slick them all smooth. And once it's all smoothed up, snaps are set, everything dries, Make sure the knife goes in and fits and the snaps tight and holds everything in place. And it's done.